Good morning, everyone. We're coming live today from Harrisburg, the capital, here in Pennsylvania, and we are having a conversation with newly elected state representative Danielle Friel Otten. We're going to talk to her about what motivates her and why she decided to run for office, and what kinds of things she's hoping to accomplish here in Harrisburg regarding climate change and air pollution. Representative Otten represents the 155th District in Chester County. She lives in Exton, PA, with her 2 kids. She's also one of the co-founders of the Del Chesco United for Pipeline Safety, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that particular issue with her this morning as well. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. I wanted to give you an opportunity to tell your story and why you ended up running for office in the state legislature, challenging a Republican incumbent, and how that all came to be.
So our community has been faced with the American East Pipeline project, which is a natural gas liquids pipeline that is being built through across 355 miles of Pennsylvania, and it comes through Chester County and Delaware County, where we have a high density population. And by the industry, we're considered a high consequence area, which means that if something were to happen in our community, there would be a catastrophic loss of life and property. And so about 5 years ago, we just started to learn about this project that was coming to our community. And I'll never forget the meeting where my neighbor Jeff was trying to explain what this was to our neighbors, and he held up a basketball, and then he held up like a yoga ball, like one of those big, huge yoga balls, and how we have pipelines in our neighborhood already, but the pipelines that are there already are carrying petroleum products that if there were a leak, it would be an environmental disaster, and that would be a major problem, but they wouldn't cause an explosion or anything that would necessarily cause loss of life and property. And we are not only changing the contents of the pipe, but they're also changing the size. And so the pipes that were there were the basketball, but the pipes that are going to be there are the
giant yoga ball.
Right. And so they're putting, I call it an industrial superhighway for the oil and gas industry through our neighborhood, where hundreds and hundreds of families and children live. And so it's not just a complete inconvenience and eyesore that they're doing construction in our community, but when the construction's gone and they recover the land, we have this dangerous infrastructure that's going within feet of our children's bedrooms.
Right. Will you talk a little bit about that proximity? Because I think that's something that's really important to remember. And Chester County is just outside of Philadelphia, so the proximity of these pipelines, that I think what has really captured a lot of people's attention. So can you talk just a little bit about how close these are to residences?
So my family does not have an easement. We are 50 feet from the pipeline project, and we are the second house over. So the first house that's closest to it is only about 15 feet from the pipeline. My next door neighbors are a family just like ours, with 2 young children, and on the other side is a couple that's lived there their whole lives, and their grandchildren are there every day. Across the street, same thing, grandchildren every day. On the other side, another family, small babies. And these pipelines are literally within feet of these children's bedrooms.
Right.
I have a neighbor who, on the other side of the neighborhood, the pipe comes so close to his home that the easement actually technically is inside the foundation of his home, it comes into his basement. And so his son is in the bedroom, sadly, right above where the pipeline is, and it's 10 feet from that wall of their home. And so, they're repurposing 100-year-old, they're not 100 years old, they're 87-year-old pipes. They're close to 100-year-old pipes. And we know what these same pipes are doing in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia in terms of water infrastructure. The quality of the pipes is degrading over time, just from natural things that these pipes do. And so there have been issues with corrosion across the state. There was a leak in Morgantown that was detected by a landowner, not by all of their 500 levels of technology that they quote for safety. And so, thankfully the leak that happened in Morgantown was in a field, and so thankfully the landowner recognized it before it found an ignition source. But in a neighborhood like ours, you know, I could unknowingly walk out and turn on my car. Someone could unknowingly walk out and be mowing the lawn and create an ignition source. So in high consequence communities like ours, there are ignition sources everywhere. And unless people are aware of what's underground, if there's a problem, we have no early detection system, we have no warning system in place. Our emergency responders haven't received the emergency response plans from Energy Transfer Partners and from Sunoco because they're saying it's a national security threat. So we have national security threats literally in our backyards right now.
Literally
in our backyards.
Not to mention, with the construction, all of the other polluting
Of
issues,
course,
noise
exactly.
pollution, diesel pollution from trucks,
Right.
the dust and everything that
Yes.
they're kicking up.
Yeah.
So you have construction impacts immediately,
Right.
and then potentially, in such a high consequence area for some real safety.
Just this weekend we had my son has asthma, and he actually had his first hospitalization in 2017 while construction was happening next to his preschool, and he had a second hospitalization shortly thereafter with an ER visit in between where they were able to send us home.
And he's
after getting
3.
treatment. He's 5.
He's 5.
He's 5
So
now.
he was 3 then. Baby.
Yeah.
He's a baby.
And we have been asthma attack free for almost a year now, and no hospitalizations. We were able to step down his action plan and his medications like just a month ago, and construction started again this week. And Friday night, I was woken up in the middle of the night with my son gasping for breath, and that terror of what a parent goes through in the middle of the night when, like I would say, if you think that a crazy clown waking you up from sleep is a nightmare, think about waking up to your child standing there unable to breathe and literally not able to communicate to you because he can't breathe. And so children suffering from asthma is a terrifying experience. For families, it's traumatizing for them. And so we were up all night Friday night on the nebulizer. I, of course, am sleeping awake to watch him and make sure that he's still breathing well. And, a week into construction, this is what's happening after a year of asthma-free life.
Yeah.
And so it's infuriating.
And the impacts are real. It's terrifying to as a parent to experience that and know that it's a real, that these things are preventable, right? So now you're a legislator here in Harrisburg, and you were just sworn in January. So welcome.
Thank you.
It's very exciting. More women, more moms in
Yeah.
office is just something I think that we as an organization at Moms Clean Air Force just are so happy to see ourselves represented in our legislature. So I wanted to, and I know 2 of the committees that you're sitting on are Children and Youth and the Environmental Resources and Energy Committee. So those are just obviously 2 things that are close to our hearts. And so I wanted to ask you about what really motivates you to do the work that you know is important here in Harrisburg. And then after that, just a little bit about some policy priorities that you are working on right now. We only have a couple more minutes before you have to dash off to a committee meeting, so I want to make sure we get everything in. So, if you could talk a little bit about motivation and policy.
I mean, this is a crazy place to work. I'm not gonna lie. There's so much every day to get upset about and angry about and fight for, and so we obviously have to choose our battles very intentionally and wisely. And so I find myself drawn to our fighting for our kids and their future. And so I've been working with my office mate Liz Fiedler.
She's my representative, yes.
So
right.
Liz and I are both moms who care very much about the future for our children and giving them a healthy environment where they can grow up and raise their own families. And so we've been working on some resolutions around fighting climate change, around putting limits on carbon emissions, and making sure that we are actually taking tangible steps forward toward fighting climate change, improving air quality, and you know, putting limits on fossil fuel industry and what they're putting out there into our communities. And that's a tough conversation here because there's such an entrenchment of the lobby here for oil and gas that, you know, everyone wants to tell you to be careful, tread that lightly. And the reality is that you're a mom, I'm a mom, we both know, like, you go into mama bear mode when your kid is sick on Friday night because of air pollution from the oil and gas industry.
You can't tread lightly.
No, you don't tread lightly there.
Lightly.
And so I've been, like, I'm starting to make a name for myself. In terms of, like, it's just hard to, I'm not going to stay silent. I'm not going to wait until I've earned some level of ability to speak. And so I've really jumped in and had the courage, or whatever you want to call it, but it's driven from my kids.
Yeah.
You know, and what's happening directly in our community, and, you know, also on children and youth. You know, that's a great way to kind of make the case for why these things are so important, not just for the reason of, you know, environmental activism, but for, like, activism for our children and their future. So
because they're going to have to fight. They're the ones who will really suffer the impacts as adults. You know, that even you and I won't, you know, won't experience. So
and just, like, thinking about whether, like, they would want to have children, and when you hear young people talking about not wanting to become parents because of what the future looks like for them,
it hurts my soul.
Yes, like,
it's heartbreaking.
That is, when we've come to that point, we have come to the point where it is absolutely a mandate that we need to fix this.
And we will not tread lightly.
No, there will be no treading lightly.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
This is a really great opportunity to talk to you, and we're so happy that you're here fighting the good fight for our kids.
And I will keep doing it. And we have an event coming up, right? Soon?
Yes, on May 18th in Exton.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we'll have more information posted on our Facebook page, and it's going to be a great event, community event, Community Power Summit, where we'll talk a lot more about all of these issues. So stay tuned. Thank you.